Today, we're going to break down the absolutely tragic collision between the cargo ships Polisi and Verity. We're going to use the official 2026 Marine Accident Investigation Branch report as our guide, and you'll see how a series of seemingly small mistakes cascaded into a huge disaster. Honestly, this is a masterclass in what not to do at sea.
Okay, so picture this. It's October 24th, 2023, just before 5 in the morning in the German Bight. The weather's clear, there's a ton of open water around. So how on earth did this happen? This quote from the report just says it all. 2 ships, plenty of sea room, and yet one of them ends up at the bottom of the ocean, with 5 sailors lost.
So, the official investigation is now done, and the 2026 AMIB report, well, it doesn't mince words at all. Its conclusion is just chillingly direct. This entire disaster was, and I quote, wholly avoidable. Let's really dig into how it all went so wrong.
All right, first things first, let's set the scene out there in the German Bight. We're going to look at the 2 ships involved and the basic rules of the road that really should have kept them miles apart.
Just look at the difference here. This is a real David and Goliath situation. On one side, you have the Polisi, this massive 190-meter bulker just cruising along at 12 knots. And on the other, you've got the Verity, less than half the size and doing just 7 knots. This huge mismatch in size and speed, it's a really critical piece of the puzzle.
So, what we had here was a classic textbook crossing situation. It's all governed by the COLGs. Think of them as the international rules of the road for ships. And Rule 15 is about as clear as it gets. If a ship is on your starboard or your right side, you get out of the way. Period. In this case, that meant the Verity was the giveaway vessel. Its one job was to act early, act big, and stay clear. The Polisi was the stand-on vessel. It was supposed to just maintain course and speed. Simple, right?
And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the failure. What I'm calling the fatal negotiation. This is what happens when human error decides to ignore clear, simple rules.
Just look at how fast this all fell apart. At 0450, Vessel Traffic Service, that's VTS, gets on the radio to warn them. Now that should have been a massive wake-up call, but instead, it just kicked off a radio chat. And look at the Verity's response, these tiny, indecisive 5-degree turns. Useless. Then the Polisi, the one ship that was supposed to hold its course, gets fed up and makes a disastrous turn to port.
And here it is, the central conflict. The law, Rule 16, demands early and substantial action. You know, a move so big and so obvious that the other ship can't possibly miss it on their radar. So what actually happened? A little chat on the VHF radio, and turned so small they were basically invisible.
You know, as a mariner, this is a point I just can't stress enough. A 5-degree course change is nothing. It's just noise on a radar display. The second you pick up that VHF radio to negotiate your way through a crossing, you've already admitted you've lost control. You're just creating a false sense of security while your time and your sea room are literally disappearing.
And all of this leads to the single most important term in this entire report, a VHF-assisted collision. This is the trap. Both bridge teams got so wrapped up in talking to each other that they forgot to act. They literally talked themselves into a collision instead of taking the simple physical action the rules demanded.
And that brings us to the point of no return. Let's walk through the final, catastrophic 120 seconds of the Verity's life.
Okay, at 0452, the situation is absolutely critical. The Polisi, remember the stand-on vessel, breaks the #1 rule. It makes a hard turn to port, putting itself directly in the Verity's path. Meanwhile, Verity is still trying to speed up and kind of outrun the problem. Both ships are now doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing.
Just 90 seconds later, the last mistake. You can almost feel the panic on the Polisi's bridge as they realize their error. They slam the rudder hard over to starboard to try and correct, but it is far, far too late. All that maneuver does is swing their bow around, perfectly lining it up to seal the Verity's fate.
The result is inevitable. The massive steel bow of the 190-meter bulker just slices directly into the starboard side of the tiny Verity. The forces involved are just unimaginable.
The damage was catastrophic. The report talks about a massive breach in the hull. The Verity's cargo of heavy steel coils probably shifted all at once, causing an instant, complete loss of stability. The ship went down so fast, the crew had no time for life jackets, no time to even get a distress call out. They were just gone.
So what are the takeaways here? What are the lessons that every single watchkeeper, every mariner has to learn from this tragedy? Well, the MIAB report is very, very clear on this.
The report's key recommendations are absolutely crucial. First, any action you take has to be big enough to be seen. If the other guy can't see it clearly on his radar, it doesn't count. Second, VTS is an advisor, not the captain. The master of the vessel is always in command. And finally, a technical point, but a vital one. Smaller ships like the Verity need to have black boxes, voyage data recorders, so investigators can actually learn from these disasters.
You know, in the end, this whole tragic event boils down to a simple, powerful truth. Having the rules in a book isn't enough. We have to actually follow them, especially when the pressure is on. And it forces every mariner to ask themselves a tough question. Is my bridge ready for a moment like this? Because as the crew of the Verity learned in the worst way possible, you only get one chance to get it right.